guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. If you hear a little background noise today, I apologize. I've got fans blowing. I am in a metal building in the middle of a sunshine field, or a field full of sunshine, and it is 88 degrees today, so I am a little warm, so I do have some fans on me. So if you hear a little white noise in the background, I apologize, but it's better than me sweating and shorting out all my equipment. The petrodollar is now ended, and I genuinely feel the West is doomed. And, of course, I'm not the only one. Now, of course, political pundits and financial experts, they're not going to admit that this is problematic and or trouble for us, and they'll kind of glaze it over and just shush it like there's no big deal. But in reality, the only thing that has kept the dollar so strong and our bonds doing well and the financial markets acting the way they do in the United States is because of the petrodollar. Now, the petrodollar, I believe, started in 1974, and that was an agreement. Well, I guess if it just ended after 50 years, it would have been 74. And it was an agreement that the United States, that the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, etc., would only use and trade oil based on the dollar, using that as the currency for oil. Well, now that's over, and this was right after we got off the gold standard. So we get off the gold standard, we kind of get on the petrodollar, and that's what keeps America doing relatively well when it comes to money and keeping the dollar strong and things like that. Well, now the petrodollar is done. Saudi Arabia says they're not going to be renewing it. They're going to be selling oil in all denominations, especially those of the BRICS nations, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and what's the S for? I always forget what the S is for. Maybe there's no S. Maybe it's just BRICS because it's plural. Anyway, they're going to be selling it in all denominations, which means all the investment and all the money that used to be coming back to the United States, keeping the dollar strong, that's going away. Our bonds, they're going to become weaker. And if you've ever asked yourself, why is the United States sending hundreds of millions of dollars, or even in some cases billions of dollars, all around the world, giving 14 million dollars to Iran for transitioning and gender studies and things, all these things. You say, why are we sending this money around the world for these stupid causes that don't do very well? It's because they want to keep the proliferation of the United States dollar through all these countries, so they keep using it, because if they keep using the dollar, it keeps its strength. All that's coming to an end, and since we don't produce anything anymore, since the United States doesn't really make anything anymore, our steel factories have been sold off to China and Japan, aluminum's gone away, car manufacturing's gone away, even everyday little items that you use every day, all of them have gone overseas. The only thing we really have left is services, like the services and hospitality, and then the government, and then, of course, food and hotels and things like that, which would be hospitality, I guess you'd call it. That's it. We don't make anything anymore. So what happens when this petrodollar goes away? Well, I've got an article here by Paul Hoffman. He says the U.S.-Saudi petrodollar pact ends after 50 years. He said the 50-year-old petrodollar agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia was just allowed to expire. The term petrodollar refers to the U.S. dollar's role as the currency used for crude oil transactions on the world market. This arrangement has its roots in the 1970s when the United States and Saudi Arabia struck a deal shortly after the U.S. went off the gold standard that would go on to have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. In the history of global finance, few agreements have wielded as many benefits as the petrodollar pact did for the United States economy. Let me put a pin in that real quick. If you do a little bit of research, you'll realize that China, Russia, and many countries are starting to stock up on gold. Many of them are talking about taking the BRICS nations and putting that back on the gold reserve. And then where they have the backing of the gold reserve and the petrodollar tied to that, they will have a very stable financial money backer, where the United States does not anymore. And we're not going to have a lot of demands for our products since we don't make anything anymore. Thus, our currency will probably go to crap. They say a boon to U.S. bonds. The petrodollar agreement, formalized after the 1973 oil crisis, stipulated that Saudi Arabia would price its oil exports exclusively in U.S. dollars and invest all its surplus oil revenues in U.S. Treasury bonds. In return, the U.S. provided military support and protection to the kingdom. This arrangement was a win-win situation for both the U.S., gained a stable source of oil and a captive market for its debt, while Saudi Arabia secured its economic and overall security. It set it as the status for the reserve currency. Oil, being dominated or denominated in U.S. dollars alone, has significance beyond the categories of oil and finance. By mandating that oil be sold in U.S. dollars, the agreement elevated the dollar status as the world's reserve currency. This, in turn, has profoundly impacted the U.S. economy. The global demand for dollars to purchase oil has helped to keep the currency strong, make imports relatively cheap for American consumers. Additionally, the influx of foreign capital into U.S. Treasury bonds has supported low interest rates and a robust bond market. In his recent book, Bonfire of the Sanities, best-selling author and investment manager David Wright argues the strength of the dollar is a key factor behind America's high standard of living. Wright declares that the reason why people in the U.S. enjoy a high standard of living as we do is because the dollar is strong. Wright then explains this strength is partly because of faith in our economy and because energy can't be bought without U.S. dollars. Now, let's talk about the faith in our economy. Biden comes out and says job numbers are great. Yes, inflation's a little high, but it's transitory. No, we're not in a recession because none of the metrics are actually in line for a recession. But we're only beating a recession by 0.1, 0.2 when it comes to GDP versus debt, when it comes to employment, things like that. But what if those numbers were a lie? Well, we'll get there in a moment. They say potential to disrupt the global financial order. That sentence right there is why I say this is trouble for the West. Because if the U.S. dollar, which is the backing for so many things, and is kind of, between this and the euro, right? And the Japanese yen, they've had their struggles. The yuan, all this money means something, right? They're all kind of tied to each other in the markets. When one falls off the cliff, like the yen, well, global economies react. What happens when the dollar falls off a cliff? Global economies are going to react. The other thing, that the reason why this is such a big deal, is that a lot of countries would still put their money in Western hands, so to speak. They would allow U.S. financial markets. They put money in and invest money with us in our stock market. They'd invest in companies. They'd buy land here, many other things. But because United States and NATO has weaponized the dollar against Russia and have seized their assets in many cases, saying, because we don't agree with what you're doing, we're going to take your U.S. dollars away from you. Russia, China, many other countries are saying, hey, this means that if we don't do what the United States wants, they might keep our money, or they might not give it back, or they may do something unscrupulous with it. We don't trust the United States anymore. And because of that, that also is going to have a key factor in the financing of the West. And why is nobody talking about this? Because it will scare the hell out of you and probably freak you out a little bit. I have no shame, and I will tell you what I know, so you're at least aware of it. Not trying to freak you out, but so you're at least aware of it. They say the potential to disrupt the global financial order. However, the petrodollar's dominance may be facing its most significant challenge yet. The agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia expired on June 9th, 2024, which is just, roughly 5 days ago. This expiration has far-reaching implications as it has the potential to disrupt the global financial order. The shifting power dynamics in the oil market are a crucial factor in this development. The rise of alternative energy sources, such as renewables and natural gas, has reduced the world's reliance on oil. Furthermore, the emergence of new oil-producing nations, such as Brazil and Canada, have challenged the traditional dominance of the Middle East. And that's fine, that's fine. But let's face it, the alternative energy sources are not reliable enough. If you look where countries have gotten rid of nuclear power, well, they've gone back to coal. And they don't want to dig up coal and produce it themselves. So now they're buying coal from other countries. It's like the LNG, the liquid natural gas that Russia was producing. It used to go through the pipelines right over to the Western countries, to the EU. But somebody blew that up. And now Russia can't sell it to the West anymore. So what's Russia doing? They're selling it to China. They're selling it to India. They're selling it to other countries, one of them United States. And then what's the United States and India and Russia doing? They're jacking the price up and sending it back over to Europe. It's one of the reasons why that United States, I believe, probably has something to do with destroying that pipeline, is because now we're making more money off liquid natural gas because Russia can't export it to the European Union. They say the U.S. dollar's future. The petrodollar's expiration could weaken the U.S. dollar and, by extension, the U.S. financial markets. If oil were to be priced in a currency other than the dollar, it could lead to a decline in global demand for the greenback. This, in turn, could result in higher inflation, higher interest rates, and a weaker bond market in the United States. Well, if you look right now and you ask people, hey, how's inflation right now? It's hurting a lot of people. How are the interest rates? It's ruined, it's decimated our housing market, where people can't afford to buy a new home, and people can't even move from their own home into a bigger and or smaller one because they can't, unless they're paying cash, they can't finance at these. And this is part of the problem of falsely lowering interest rates down to zero, is it gave free money to everybody, and it really put damage in our economy, and it saved us from 2008. It allowed the recovery to happen much faster, but eventually that bill comes due, and the bill is now coming due. So imagine taking things as bad as they are now with inflation and higher interest rates and making it twice or three times as bad. That may be where we're going. And if the dollar weakens, pretty soon those cheap Chinese products aren't so cheap anymore. They still may be low quality, but they may not be that cheap. They say key takeaways: a significant shift in global power dynamics. The expiration of the petrodollar agreement represents a significant shift in global power dynamics. It highlights growing influence of emerging economies and the changing energy landscape. While the full implications of this shift remain to be seen, investors should at least be aware that on the macro level, the global financial order is entering a new era. The U.S. dollar's dominance is no longer guaranteed. Now, I have another article that was written a couple months ago, but I do want to read this as well because this is another opinion, and I think it lines up very well with what we believe, or what financial experts believe will happen, even though they're not talking about it. They say exactly how will the U.S. be affected when BRICS completely ditches the dollar. Now, let me put this in here too. When a lot of people say, yeah, but why wouldn't they be talking about this? Well, right now, it boils down to politics. Biden is president. If there's headlines of we're in a recession and there's going to be hyperinflation because of BRICS and all the things, people are going to frown upon dear sweet potato head that is in charge of everything. So let's not even pretend that the media isn't in the pockets of the left right now. So of course they're not going to put out this bad news, which will shake the economy, maybe shake the stock market right in an election year. And again, I've got more proof of this. We'll get to it. So he goes on to say, it is not a hidden fact that the BRICS nations are on a mission to dramatically change our global economic balance. Their goal is to end the reign of the U.S. dollar as king of international trade. By making trades in their local currencies, they plan to boost their own economies and reduce reliance on the dollar. And what's more, there's a worldwide campaign to convince all other countries to join them. The BRICS success is expected to hit the U.S. economy in several ways, potentially leading to market declines over the next few years. If BRICS completely ditches the dollar, an influx of the currency could flood back into America, sparking hyperinflation. Three major U.S. sectors would bear the brunt of this shift: banking and finance, technology and fintech, and consumer goods and retail. What are we? We're not a nation that produces cars. We don't produce steel. We don't produce aluminum. We don't produce anything anymore. That's all gone overseas. So we're consumer goods, right? We buy things. Cheap things come from China. They go through Amazon. Amazon makes some money. They go through, a Facebook market sellers. They make some money. They go through grocery stores that make money. They go through Walmart that makes money. all these companies is pass-throughs, and they scrape money a little bit off the top, a little vig, from the countries that are producing it to you, because you can't really jump on the internet and buy something from China directly. It's got to go through an intermediary. And those intermediaries are several companies. What happens when that pricing gets so expensive and the quality stays the same, or things get so bad here you can't keep buying them? Well, the Chinese products don't come. And then Walmart struggles, and Target struggles, and the grocery stores, all these places struggle. Well, those are a heck of a lot of jobs because it's consumer goods and retail. We already see problems in our banking and finance. We've had 3 of the biggest bank failures since '08, and there's many more that may be following it up. What happens when things get worse? Technology. What happens when more and more products are coming from Taiwan or overseas? This is not going to bode well for us. He continues on, a triple threat. When it comes to banking and finance, the decreased demand for the dollar would mean trouble. Forex markets depend entirely on the flow of currencies, and a dip in demand for the dollar could make it tough for the Federal Reserve to manage the currency's value. They already struggle with that now, let's be honest with it. Without the usual demand from BRICS nations, central banks, the U.S. might see its dollar coming back home, potentially leading to hyperinflation. The technology industry could also suffer. Inflation can lead to job cuts and force companies to spend more just to keep the doors open. If BRICS countries turn their back on the dollar, American tech is going to be facing so many challenges. As for consumer goods and retail, the everyday impact would be devastating. Inflation could cause prices to soar, making purchases more expensive for regular Americans. This situation calls for a quick action from U.S. to mitigate the fallout and safeguard the dollar's value. If it can, I mean. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, actually just expressed his concerns on the U.S. ongoing debt crisis, suggesting it could be the end of the dollar's dominance. With U.S. debt reaching a shocking $34 trillion, things aren't really looking good for the greatest country on earth. Central banks globally have already started diversifying away from the dollar, with the majority turning to gold as a safer bet. Smart, no? Yes, very smart. Of course it's smart. So you've got China, India, many of these countries starting to grab up gold, and they'll use that as their currency's backing. If each country can grab enough gold and hold on to it and use that to back their own dollar, it'll stabilize the market's dollar values against each other. So it'll make it very easy to say a dollar is worth 0.8 euros, it's worth 200 yen, it's worth whatever, and those will stop fluctuating nearly as much. Except the problem is the United States, yes, we may be having some gold, but since we left the gold standard, it's not the United States is buying it up, don't get me wrong, but China and these others are as well to hedge their bets. So eventually there's going to be a settling of the value of currency based on, yes, how much gold they have, but also what they produce and how much of a demand it is in by other countries. What does the United States produce that is in demand by other countries? Nothing really, not much anymore. What does China produce? A lot. You know, it used to be German steel, good German steel that was in high demand. And same thing here, actually. Pittsburgh, U.S. Steel. It was good, high-quality metal. Well, it's all gone to China. And if China and Russia are working in tandem, Russia has a lot of raw minerals and raw products. If they can sell it directly to China, and China's the one that makes everything and then ships it out to the world, that keeps Russia and China in pretty good positions, and the United States not nearly as much. Fink emphasizes the urgency of the situation, saying that America's high debt levels make it difficult to fight inflation without making the debt problem worse. Yikes. And they say beyond the dollar, of course, the BRICS currency. The highly anticipated currency would offer numerous benefits like more efficient transaction and increased financial inclusion. By utilizing blockchain technology, a BRICS currency would definitely reshape the global financial system. This would affect the U.S. influence globally and challenge the dollar's status as the primary reserve currency. It would also encourage other regions to create their own currencies, further shaking the dollar's dominance. Doesn't that sound wonderful? The dollar has long been the go-to for international trade and oil transactions. However, its share of global reserves is shrinking as other currencies gain ground. A successful BRICS currency could accelerate de-dollarization, potentially undermining the power of U.S. sanctions and leading to a decline in the dollar's value. Investors and sectors across the U.S. economy, from oil and gas to technology and tourism, would need to adjust to this new reality. The BRICS are coming, and they would alter trading patterns, disrupt market volatility, and necessitate a strategic rethink for investors. Ready or not, it's happening. This is one of the key reasons I think that the United States is starting to talk about the digital dollar, is because it managed to solve a few things. Number one, they can kind of set a quote-unquote fake value to it, much like Bitcoin has. Bitcoin really is just numbers on a computer. It's essentially worth nothing. But if everybody agrees upon that it has value, that it's safe and secure, and that it has use and utility, then all of a sudden it's worth something. I mean, if you think about it, fiat currency is not based on worth anything. It's just what others will give you for that currency, and that's going to plummet. So I think the U.S. is looking at making this digital dollar because at some point they're going to say, we're going to get this inflood of cash, and we need to do a 10-to-1 trade or a 100-to-1 trade, and then lock down the amount of money we make so we can get control of this monster we've created. But there's a problem to that. Number one, they can't control themselves. They'll start falsely manipulating that money just like they do with fiat currency, and they'll just print too much of it because they need it, because they don't have good fiscal responsibility. And number two, they'll be able to track everything you do with your money. You're not complying with a mandate or a jab, no more money for you. We're going to turn it off. And in current, since it's digital, it'll have to be on a phone or a device. Who says the government can't just find a bad actor and decide to turn off that money? They won't be able to control themselves. They will have the control, and at some point or another, because they have the control, they will use it to their benefit. And if you don't believe me, just look at the Federal Reserve. That's what the Federal Reserve is, except they do it with paper money, except they can't track it down to the dollars of bills you have in your wallet, where with this, they will. And then we talk about the economy, right? This is from 7 months ago, and nothing has changed. But remember, our government is fine lying to us if it keeps the people that they want in power and not some orange Cheeto rapscallion named Trump. They don't want him in power, so they can't say anything's bad. This is from a story from Will Kessler. The Biden administration has overcounted new jobs almost every single month this year. What does that mean? It means the government is lying about our numbers. Of course they would. Of course they would, because how they don't want to scare you, they don't want to spook you, and God forbid they want you to know the truth. They said the Biden administration has revised down previously reported jobs data for nearly every month this year, resulting in a huge disparity from the original advertised numbers, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The number of jobs added in August was revised down from 227,000 to 165,000. September was revised down from 336,000 to 297,000, resulting in 101,000 fewer jobs than were previously reported, according to the BLS. The U.S. economy added 150,000 jobs in October, subject to revisions in future reports, lower than the 170,000 jobs the economists expected. Now, I can go on, but there's no need. What you need to know is the government is lying about the number of jobs that they're putting out there. They don't want people to know the truth. So these administrations are lying. And the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof, it's always watch what I do, not what I say. Well, we can see what's happening. This is from Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge. Initial claims surged to 10-month highs as California joblessness soars. This is from today. He said, did we suddenly get a peek at economic reality? The number of Americans applying for jobless benefits for the first time surged last week to 242,000, up from 229,000 and well above the 225,000 expected. That's the highest since August of 2023. What's happening when you're saying, oh, we're adding 250,000 jobs to the economy, but that number's a lie? And also, you've got 225,000 or 240,000 people claiming jobless claims for the first time. People coming in, people going out. Things aren't getting any better. And on top of that, well, I'll get to it in a second. He goes through the statistics. California is by far the highest, almost the same as Minnesota, second place, Pennsylvania, third place, Illinois, fourth place, almost the same as all of those combined. But it's not just liberal or conservative states, it's a lot of different states. What's going on? Well, turns out, and I don't have this pulled up. Let me pull it up. Just a second. Okay, I got it here. I just wanted to add this in very quickly while I was thinking of it. Congressional report finds half of all new jobs are going to immigrants. This is from June 7th, just a couple days ago. The House Budget Committee released a report Friday that found more than half of all new jobs are going to immigrants, including those in the country illegally. The report comes after the Labor Department released its jobs report for May, which saw a small decrease in labor participation, which shrank from 62% in April to 62.5% in May. 62.7, sorry. And the unemployment rate ticking up slightly from 3.9% in April to 4% in May. Immigrants have filled 840,000 new jobs since November, according to the Washington Times. When you're talking about a jobs report, 130,000 a month, 200,000 a month, and then you have to revise it down on top of that, and then come to find out almost 1 million of those jobs have gone to people that are here illegally, what do you think Americans are going to do? Do you think they're just going to say, oh, well? No, they're going to file for they're going to fire for unemployment. So, of course, that's surging to an all-time high. But that's not even the worst of it. This is from August 3rd of last year. Why has hiring stayed strong? States and cities are finally boosting pay and adding workers. I could find something more current, but this goes back to my initial point. When you say, hey, we got a bunch of new jobs coming in, this is great. The economy is growing. We're not stagnating. Well, those jobs aren't going to private industry. Those jobs aren't going to actual companies that make money and then pay taxes. That's not where the money's going. The money's going to state and federal jobs. Who pays state employees? Your taxes do. Who pays federal employees? Your taxes do. These aren't jobs, they're giveaways. Now, yes, you can say these are necessary jobs, but they're not a value add. They don't help grow the economy. They shrink the economy because they're taking your tax dollars that you pay from working, government, but as well as private industry, and they pay to the state, and then the state pays these people. That's not really job growth. That's giveaways. And if you work for the state, I'm not saying that you're given free money. I'm not saying that. But like if I'm a military member and I get paid, I don't know, we did not make good money. But let's say I pay 30 or I make 30 grand a year. Of course, I pay taxes on that 30 grand a year, so I'm paying $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 in taxes, maybe even more than that now. So I'm still paying those taxes back, but that money's going to our federal government. That money's going to the state, and they collect it and they say, okay, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, federal workers, all these people are getting your money. And so they may need more people in those industries, but it's not adding anything to the economy. It's a money sink. And so this goes back, yes, almost a year ago, but it's still the same today. Most jobs that are coming in are going to giveaways. That's not going to bode well. So when our government says, oh, jobs are strong, hiring's strong. Yeah, but it's not new money. It's not good money. Hiring 89,000 IRS agents at the cost of, I don't know how, $1 billion, how much they spent for that. That's not an ad. That's scraping the bottom of the barrel to get money from people that don't have it anymore. And where does this all end? Where this ends is there's not going to be enough jobs for people. Our government, to pay these government employees, keeps running us more and more into debt. We're going up $1 trillion every 100 days now. And soon it'll be every 90, and then 80, and then 60, and every 2 months, and then every month. We've gotten ourselves in such a hole of debt, we cannot get ourselves out without cutting major entitlements like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're upside down, and it is not coming back. There is no digging out. And so to keep the job numbers falsely inflated, to try to tell everybody we're not in a recession, they're doing government giveaway jobs. And now you know why there's so many people that are in diversity this and DEI that and Department LGHDT. They've got to come up with something. But it's just borrowing money from China and other companies or countries to pay people that are working in our government that aren't doing anything. It's a giveaway, and it is going to fail. So when all of these culminations come through and hit at once, that's it. It's game over. How do we protect ourselves against this? Buy land while you can. You know, they're not making any more land. Buy things that you need, hardware. You know, it's one of the reasons why I'm building my house and why I bought so much acreage. It's because I can afford it now. I don't know if I can afford it someday else. Things are going to get more expensive. Inflation's going to keep going up. Things are going to be hard to purchase. And it's already getting that way now, but what happens when all of this compounds? The BRICS nations and the petrodollar going away, and then hyperinflation, and then our own deficit here. Europe's going through the same thing. It only has one way, and it's down. The recovery from this, if you look at what happened in the 70s with Jimmy Carter and his disastrous policies, right? We had a decade of the market being hammered, get lines to get gas because of the gas crisis in the 70s. Interest rates on homes at 15%. And that was done. Look at, what's his name? Paul Volcker, I think it was. Last name was Volcker. He slammed interest rates to 18% to get this all in control. But because of social media and all the people able to yell at everybody else and on social media and pressure people to act a certain way, no one has the cojones to step up and do what needs to be done to rein in this. We're going to need a lot of companies collapsing and stocks collapsing and incomes collapsing and interest rates going through the roof. That's the only way this gets fixed, and no one's going to do it. So you can expect, because of the government handouts and all this money going out there like it is, and the BRICS getting off the petrodollar, we need to go back on the gold standard or the digital dollar, and they're going to go for the digital dollar because that control is too tasty. The ability to manipulate is too necessary. They will not go back here in the United States, at least. They'll not go back to a gold standard because they can't manipulate the money like they're used to. They've been manipulating it for 50 years. They're not giving that up. They'll go to the digital dollar and manipulate and crash the system some more. I don't know when this all comes to an end. Maybe it's a decade. Maybe it's 2. Maybe it's 6 months. I don't know. I'm not that guy to tell you. I don't give out financial advice. But I can tell you, things are not great right now. Things are not looking good. They're only on track to get worse. So buckle up and prepare. Act accordingly. Most people right now, if you talk to a lot of analysts, they should say we should have been in a bear market years ago. But because of quantitative easing and dropping the interest rates to zero for businesses to borrow money, zombie companies have been shambling around for 8 years that should have failed a long time ago. And if you don't believe me, look at BuzzFeed and Vice News and all these other craptastic companies that have been shambling around doing horrible, and they've been surviving on free money and venture capitalism. That all comes to an end. And when it does, how many more companies are going to fold along with it? I'm guessing a lot. And then the employment's going to skyrocket, probably to 20 or 30%. What happens after that? I don't know. But look into your history. Understand where this goes. Understand that we may be in a very similar position to the 1920s and the Great Depression. It may get to that point, and how we make it, how we get out of it, I don't think many people know. We're in uncharted territory. So do what you can while you can. Look into it. Do your homework. Don't just take my word on it. Look at it. Look into it a little bit. And if you say, hey, man, we're kind of in a bad spot, all right, do your best to plan accordingly while you can. Because if it gets really bad, it's going to be everywhere. And lastly, I'm going to play with this video, because this gives you a perfect example of what happens when you have people that do, I watched a movie, and it had Russell Crowe in it, and he was a boxer, and it was the Great Depression. I don't remember the name of the movie now. I should probably remember. But he was a boxer, and it was during the Depression, and he boxed, and you would see, like, his manager's house, they had no furniture. They had to sell everything. And he had to go borrow money hat in hand from the government or church or somebody, and he did pay it back. But this was a proud man that, the managers and the boxers, and they were selling their furniture, and they were down, and he was going hungry to feed the kids. Like, it was really bad times. What happens when that happened is people still had scruples. People still cared about their communities and their neighbors, and they had integrity and they had honor. They didn't want to do the wrong thing. Well, come to today, and people are stealing crap off of other people's porches because it came from Amazon. They don't even know what's in the package. They're just going to take it, try to sell it. People are stealing things from grocery stores and Walmarts and things, and then they're going out and setting a table a block down the road and putting up their own market where they're reselling the products. When you've got people like that in your society, what do you think they're going to do when crap hits the fan? Do you think it's going to be hat in hand, I'll pay you back after these hard times, sir? Of course not. They're going to put a 9 mil in your face and tell you to give over your wallet. And this is a video from downtown Los Angeles. There's a bridge that's beautifully lit. It's well known. What happens when you invite a bunch of thugs and criminals into your country? You don't give them jobs, but they need to make money, and they want to make money. They're going to steal $17 million of copper out of a bridge.
An iconic LA landmark still in the dark almost 6 months after thieves stole nearly 7 miles worth of copper wiring that illuminated the 6th Street Bridge.
In fact, they're waiting for us to repair them. They want us to repair them because every light post to them is an ATM machine. It's pure cash. So when we go and repair, what do? They go and they steal again.
Councilmember Kevin De Leon helped create a task force to crack down on the copper wire thefts plaguing the city. More than 6,000 incidents were reported citywide last year, repairs exceeding $17 million. The task force also working on ways to prevent a costly repeat of the crime along the famous bridge, since repairs there are expected to top $2 million.
We need to come up with creative ways to reinforce the metals, the cement that protect and safeguard the wires. So
I'm going to pause him here. I want you to listen to that point, because that's what I'm going to talk about. He said we need to find a way to safeguard the metal and the wires so the thieves can't come back and steal it. We'll get back to that.
Thieves can't just walk up.
The picturesque bridge has been besieged with problems since its unveiling, including massive street takeovers and people climbing the arches for photo shoots.
Okay, so what does he say? He says we need to ensure that we find a way to encase the metal and the wires so that thieves can't come steal it again. I got an idea. Do you know what would be cheaper than that? Arresting the thieves, making a case out of them, making an example out of them, throwing them in jail. Because if you secure this bridge of all its wiring and you put $17 million into fixing it, and you secure it, and the thieves can't steal copper wire from it anymore, well, guess what they do next? They go to a street lamp, and they take out the bolts at the bottom of the street lamp, or run into it with a stolen car, knock it over, and then they steal the copper out of that. And then they break into homes and steal that. And then they beat little old ladies up on the street and they steal that. You can't outlaw, or you can't prevent crimes from bad people, because bad people are not necessarily stupid. And so they'll find other ways of stealing from you. Do you notice nothing in here says, yeah, they said we have a crackdown to try to stop this. They don't have a crackdown to arrest these criminals. It's not the criminals' fault. They're poor people that don't know any better, and they don't have a good opportunity to make money. So it's not their fault that they have to steal to feed their children. That's the mentality that places like Los Angeles has. But so instead of taking the people off the street that are doing the crimes, well, we've got to bolt everything in and lock it all down and encase it in cement. Are you going to do the same thing for everything? This is why when you look at Soviet-style block buildings and you look at West Germany, or East Germany, I forget which Germany's which, East Germany, why everything there was no art, no decoration. It was just concrete and steel. It's because when people are poor, they're going to steal stuff. They're going to loot it. When people are desperate, truly desperate for food, sure. But what about this? They don't care. They would rather take the long, arduous, expensive way around the problem instead of just throwing the people that are doing it out of the country or into jail. This is the thinking of our politicians today. This is the thinking of our financial world today. They don't want to tell you the truth. They don't want you to know what's going on because you might be upset. And God forbid you're upset at criminals that maybe have brown skin or something. Because we didn't have this problem in California back in the 70s when things were bad, when we went through, yes, you had gangs and you had robberies and things like that. You didn't have people stealing copper wire out of the ground. And the people that did steal things, guess what? When they got caught, they went to jail. We don't even do that anymore. When I say things are going to get bad, they're going to get bad. I just don't know how bad. But at least you can say, well, I knew it was coming. I heard about this somewhere at least, since our news, our mainstream news, isn't telling us really anything at this point other than orange mad bad, and this government is amazing. So, guys, if you like my work, please support my independent journalism by joining me over at betterbachelor.locals.com. $5 a month. Put a couple ducats in my pocket. I can keep doing stories that I think are important and interesting. I have another crazy one coming out for you shortly. So come on over and join us today. Links down below, and we'll see you in the next one.